Okay, so we are recording again. My name is Luke Angstadt. This is my podcast. It was previously run under the title "The Business of Esoteric Knowledge under the title "The Business of Esoteric Knowledge and Wisdom." But after a lot of long, hard thinking, I decided to go in a different direction with the name of the show, and I'm going to start calling it Knowledge Wars, because I think that the title "The Business of Esoteric Knowledge and Wisdom" isn't clear to people what the intentions when they first see the name. They have, I think it's not easy for people to understand or identify what this channel could possibly be about, or what this channel is about, excuse me. So I'm going with the name Knowledge Wars, because I think that's more crystal clear in people's minds as to what I'm talking about. And that's because we are in a war, and some people say it's an information war or a data war, but I kind of think about the pyramid of how data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. So I think you kind of have like data at the bottom, so that you just have raw data, and it's like what do we as human beings do with this raw data? And then above the data, you have information, which is kind of, information is almost like organized data, and it's just information. It's organized data. And people can do what they want with it, and that's pretty much what information is. And then knowledge, knowledge is contextualized, or it's information explained and information broken down. And when you take information and you read between the lines and you tell people, okay, this is what this information is telling us, and we could take this information many different ways, but given all the circumstantial evidence, this is what we think the information is telling us. That's what knowledge is. It's kind of it's explaining and contextualizing information. And then above, if you see this as a pyramid, above knowledge is wisdom. And no one can teach wisdom. I mean, wisdom is pretty much what a person does once they have knowledge. I mean, knowledge is either. I mean, knowledge in and of itself is neutral. I mean, it can be used for good, it can be used for evil. But and you can teach knowledge, and you can. But wisdom, wisdom is something that you can't teach. I mean, that's on an individual to do what they want, do what they will with knowledge. So I don't think wisdom can be taught, but we can certainly teach knowledge. And that's why I've gone with the title Knowledge Wars, because we are obviously in a war. We are in a psychological war, and whether people will admit that or not, I mean, they know it, right? I mean, we've had this conversation with Bob before, and I've had this with many of my friends, is that people know that something's going on. They know they're being manipulated on a massive scale, and they know that nothing makes sense, that they're being fed by the media and the government, but they just won't confront the fact that maybe that we are, well, I mean, they won't confront the fact that perhaps the government's behind all of this too. So with no further ado, Bob, I'm going to introduce Bob. Here's my recurring guest. Bob's on for the third time here, and have Bob introduce himself to my audience, and then we'll get going.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday.
Thank you, Bob. So I guess where we left off, Bob, was we were talking about how no matter how much circumstantial evidence people are presented with, just a mountain of evidence that something else is going on here on this planet, that what we're being told isn't even remotely true, that none of it makes sense. People will acknowledge that, but still, the overriding official narrative, the basic structure of official history and current events, people just will not go there. They just will not go, and they will not consider the alternative that that the government has very sinister intentions for what's going on this planet. And a video you share with me, I think this is a great launching pad for the conversation today, about the power of perception, and how and the reason why movies are so accurately able to predict the future is because your perception shapes reality, and that this agenda for world control in this one world government, and where everybody is marching lockstep to the dictates of one world government. The reason that why we have all these dystopian movies and novels over the past not just 50 years, but even extending farther back into the future, and why so many of them have proven to be very accurate, is because once you get into it, once the collective mind of society gets into a rigid way of thinking, especially when it's negative, and when they're marching to the beat of what they're being told by the governments, that we see this dystopian world playing out. And that's why these movies, because of the power of perception. If you once the mind is controlled and And once it is zeroed into this one rigid way of thinking, I mean, it's very easy to predict the future because the collective perception creates the future, and it creates well, not only does it create the present, but it's going to shape the future as well. So what are your thoughts on that, Bob? Because I know you sent me that video and you asked me for my
yeah,
thoughts.
I mean,
Yeah.
pretty much, I mean, it's pretty difficult to comprehend in a sense, but I mean, it's true. I mean, people, whether we know it or not, like once you, I'll just use an example of my business, right? Like I have right now it's been going for about 5 years or whatever, but a very successful, simple pretzel business, right? However, the idea came from, I'll say it came from God, however people want to see that. And I'm a carpenter, okay, by trade. I'm a carpenter my whole life. I've always wanted to be a carpenter, and I'm a good carpenter. And so that's what I've done my whole life. I did something probably about 12 years ago. Once again, another idea that did not work. However, the average person would say, you know, you don't, how are you going to do this? You know, and it's like, I don't even know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it. And however that gets inside of somebody, but I mean, the idea would be, this is going to happen, right? I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. So I'm just like, we're talking big collective. I'm just breaking it down for me individually, why I believe it. And things just happen. You can't explain it, but things happen. And you take, you know, I call it following God, but you take one step because you think it could happen, and at once, but you have to take that one step. You can't sit around and do nothing and think things are going to change. But when you take that one step and you realize, wow, I didn't know, it's almost like stepping out onto nothing and something slips under your foot. You're like, whoa, there's something here. And so when you do that, you get a little confident and you're like, whoa, I'll take another step and see where it goes. Before you know it, here you go. And then things happen along the way that are completely unexplainable, but you're always headed in the direction that you believe you are going to go. So that's just for me individually, and that's happened many, many times in different situations. But collectively, I think as people, if we would all have that mindset, yeah, who knows where we would go. But at the same time, the negative people and the people who think, oh, that'll never happen, or this is going to be like that. I mean, these are the people that literally are always physically ill as well, right? Like their bodies respond to, and I think there's even been studies shown that a positive mindset will heal your body, you know, literally heal you physically. Yeah. And so, yeah, there's power in our, I don't know, like I'm not that, you're a way deeper thinker than me, but it's like these frequencies or something come out of people, and life is nothing but frequencies and things like that. And it's, I can't explain it. I just know that for me is real. You know?
Well, you're right, Bob. And the controllers of this world know this too. That's why they inundate the public with negative information, with negative. That's why all of the propaganda is negative, because they understand that it's a self-perpetuating machine, where if they can keep people in these repeating negative patterns of thought, that is how they create their future. That is how they are going to create this one world, or this one world government future, where everyone is marching lockstep to the beat of what the government tells them to do via the mainstream media mouthpieces. That's how it works. So, well, I mean, from COVID-19, from the beginning of March 12, 2020, when they said, hey, stay home, you know, we want you to be stressed out, scared, shitless, worried, fearful, overwhelmed with anxiety. I mean, the uncertainty of not knowing when you can leave your home, when you can go to business, when you can go back to work, when you can open your business again. Just the uncertainty alone compounds the stress and the worry and the anxiety, and it pushes people deeper into these repeating negative patterns of energy. That and it all revolves around fear, because you know, fear is the great controller. And when somebody is possessed by the spirit of fear, you can mold them and to do anything you want them to do. You can compel, you can force them to do anything. You can they're like moving, you know, chess pieces. I mean, they're just moving pieces around on a board, and you can play with them like silly putty, and that's what we see happening. And it all comes from the fear and how how fear is the greatest tool to manipulate people's perceptions. And you're right. I mean, and back to you're right. But when you said about when you have to do something, you know, right? I mean, in order to manifest an intention, you have to take a step, right? And it often does come down to taking a leap of faith, where we still have a lot of fear and uncertainty and anxiety, but we find the courage to take that first step in the right direction, or in a direction that we want to go. And once we take that step, and it could be a new business idea, it could be a new exercise routine, it could be anything, but we have to take that first step to put that intention in motion. And then what we see is that once we take that first step, you know, the universe will respond in kind, right? And that's, I mean, you told that story with your pretzel business. You've seen the universe responding in kind. But we have to take that leap of faith too, to put everything in motion too.
Oh yeah, yeah. You have to act on it, and I mean, like I said, you call it the universe, I call it God. Same, whatever.
It is. Yes.
We're not. This is not what this channel is about. But even people that I know would be like, you know, praying to God for something like money because they can't make their bills, and this is nothing new for me. But it's like, okay, pray to God for money, but don't expect it to show up in your mailbox tomorrow. You know what I mean? Maybe that money is going to come because you're talking to people and you're finding an opportunity, or you're getting a job, or you're meeting the right person. But too many people sit around and they just think that, you know, like faith or prayer or however you want to call it, whatever you would choose to call it, is just going to happen with us sitting here doing nothing. That's not the way it works. That's not biblical. That's not the way God works. He told Noah, whether you believe it or not, he told Noah to build an ark. Noah didn't sit around thinking like, okay, well, you know, maybe it's gonna rain, maybe it's not. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna sit around and wait for God to take care of me. He worked his ass off and he built an ark. That's the way it works, right? And it's all throughout history, all throughout the Bible. That's how God works. God works through people, and you know, that's it. And if you believe it, I guess to act on something, you have to really believe it first, right? Like if you don't believe it, you're not gonna act on it. So I would say that the people who are sitting around waiting for something to change or happen or whatever, they don't really believe in anything. Like I don't know, like I have no idea. And I'm not saying like believe in yourself, believe that God, in your case, the universe, is here to work with us in unison to help us make a better place. And you're right, when you get stuck with watching, and that's why I'm very, not saying careful, it's automatic for me. It's not even being careful. There would have been a time in my life when I said I got to be careful about what I watch and listen to, because I don't want that negative stuff getting into my head. Now I don't have to, now it's automatic. Like that is not even appealing to me, you know? It's not even appealing. It's like that stuff is just, we're just like opposed to that, you know? But if you're not aware of that and you're constantly feeding your mind and your soul with negative things, and when you think about it, all movies, like you said, they might have this little bit of a happy ending. I don't even know if they do anymore. I don't watch that many movies, but for the most part, they're very negative, you know, and they do kind of like so many things of the future, you know. All movies are like, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen. And so when it begins to happen, people just accept it. Like, oh yeah, like maybe there's going to be aliens one day. I don't know. And I'm not saying here or there, I don't know, but people are ready to accept that crap. Even if somehow they fabricate it to make you believe something, people will readily accept it. Just like when COVID came, I talked to people that said, oh, we knew this was coming. I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, they've been talking about for 20 years. Scientists have been saying this is going to come. Smart people, right? Smart people, too smart. We knew this was going to happen. Really? But that's how it works. They knew it. Like they had nothing to do with it. They just predicted that 20, 30 years, this is going to happen. The Rockefeller, Scenarios for the Future came out in early 2000s, predicted COVID almost to a T, shutting down the world's economy, resistance, everything. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's almost
and David Icke, the researcher David Icke, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's been doing this research since the early 1990s, and he's been talking about, you know, a viral outbreak for the better part of decades, and how it's going to follow with lockdowns and compulsory compulsory shots. I don't even like using the word vaccines, but I mean
and here we
compulsory
are,
shots, and here we are, yeah, and here we are. So, yeah, and what you're illustrating is that this game plan, this agenda, and sure.
You can talk to. I'm listening.
I was going to say that this agenda for a one world order, a one world government, again, where the entire world is marching lockstep to the dictates of a one world government. This plan has been in play for over 100 years. I mean, it even dates back to the Protocols of Zion. I don't know if you're familiar with the Protocols of Zion, but the Protocols of Zion was a book that came out at the turn of the 20th century, thereabouts, and it predicted pretty much everything that's happening in the world right now. Referring to the mass of people as cattle to be directed and to be moved around the earth and to be used as a natural resource to line the pockets of the 1% of 1% of 1% elite of real filthy rich people that have power and control over the world. And that's what we see happening. The reason that all this is falling into place is because the game plan and the parts of the game plan, the idea of a virus, of a virus that will lock down the road. It's one of the greatest ploys. It's one of the greatest lies in history, because again, we have an invisible menace that nobody can prove or disprove exists. None of these assholes have isolated the COVID-19 virus and said, okay, this is the COVID-19 virus. It's never been isolated because our bodies have, most of our bodies have coronavirus. I mean, the world, we've always had coronaviruses with us, but now they decided to brand one as COVID-19. You can't isolate it. So again, we have this invisible phantom menace that nobody can prove or disprove. Well, that's been in the offing for several decades. And then once we convince the people of this invisible menace that you can't prove or disprove, well, then come the lockdowns, and then come the compulsory shot, then comes everything else that we see falling into place, and we've seen predicted in movies, because this agenda has been in place for a long time, and the predictive programming is put there, is in place that to turn people's brains into malleable mush. So once it actually does arrive, they already have the idea of this is already implanted in their brain. They've already been staring at their TVs and their movie screens, seeing the images of what's going to happen when this virus outbreak comes. I mean, we have that movie, The Walking Dead, that movie 28 Days Later, the movie Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman and Morgan Freeman. I mean, Soylent Green. I mean, I know it's a little bit off topic from the virus, but we've had all these, I mean, the Planet of the Apes. So we've had so many dystopian movies where people are seeing, so Bob, people are seeing the images, and they're seeing how human beings are responding when they are placed in these catastrophic situations, more often than not brought on by, a climate catastrophe or a viral outbreak, and they see how people are responding on the movie screen, and then that implants into their brain for how they're going to respond, once it happens, and once it happens on this plane of reality, and then we see it playing out, and then that's why people are responding in kind.
Yeah,
because they've been taught how to respond. They've been taught subconsciously through just the inundating of moving images in TVs and movies, how to respond.
Right,
once the government's finally unveiled this virus, here's how they're going to respond.
Yeah, and then it's crazy because, especially for the younger generation, because they were born into this environment, right?
This is all they're going to know.
Exactly right. Like, so I will go back to like when we were, and used to think it was silly or whatever, but like, so back to, I was born in the 60s. And so people would talk about Elvis being the devil, right? Because the way he's shaking up on stage and rock and roll, like we're talking like, fanatical people would say this is bad. And people would laugh it off. But what? And I'm not getting to say Elvis was the devil or nothing like that, but watch how that has progressed over the past 50 years, right? And so, and it's all through what we watch. And so it has formed the minds of people, to just like we're talking about, that we're accepting things and believing things that if they would have just thrown them at us, if we're sitting here, let's just pretend for a second that there was no TV, there was no media, and all of a sudden, and we're just living our lives, right? Like normal human beings, like we should, in nature, doing our thing, whatever, but there is no media. And all of a sudden, one day they said, and they threw us into 2022, right? And they're showing the movies that they're showing. We'd be all like, what the fuck are you talking about?
There has to be a tiptoe, right? A creeping, and there. I mean, it's a step by. It's like
little,
boiling a
little by
frog,
little,
right?
yeah.
So like if you have a pot of boiling water and you throw the frog in there, the frog's
Yeah.
going to jump out. But if you put the frog in there and you turn up the temperature slowly, or the frog's looking around, and next thing you know, the
Right.
frog's boiling.
And
I mean,
we're
the
we're
same
about at a
principle.
boil, and people ain't jumping out.
But I mean that's it's the same metaphor here too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you bring it out gradually and slowly, and that's why they took their time with this virus outbreak, and that's why we had so many decades of predictive programming with movies. I mean, and I just named maybe half a dozen a few minutes ago, but I know, I mean, there were more than that. If we stopped here and made a list or went on Google and searched, I mean, we'd have a list as long as our arm for movies predicting a dystopian future brought on by a virus outbreak and then lockdowns as well. So I mean, because they knew how radical this plan was, they knew how off the wall it is and how it makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, it's completely insane. I mean, the lockdown society to save society. I mean, the only reason you lock down a society is to destroy society. I mean, if we have a virus, it's gonna. There have been no public service announcements on natural ways to boost the immune system, how to strengthen the immune system. Get exercise, sunshine, vitamin C, among other things. I mean, there are other dietary supplements, and I don't know them off the top of my head because for many reasons. But there hasn't been a push to say, okay, here are all the ways that we can naturally boost our immune systems. But here are all the ways where we can compound your fear, stress, worry, and anxiety that decimate the immune system. Even if there was a legitimate threat to people's, I mean, this is how we destroy our immune systems even further is by keeping people in a perpetual state of fear, stress, worry, and anxiety. And that's what they're doing. Why? Because this is all intentional and it's all designed to keep people, to drive people deeper and deeper into a perpetual state of fear where they will go along with anything. And I think we're at that point almost. I mean, we're seeing that with the pushback on the Second Amendment, among other things. But once you have them in this, and you can, like you said before, Bob, you can't just throw it all at them all at once, or they're going to say, "Whoa, wait a second, we're not going to go for this." I mean, we're not going to we're throwing our lives away if we lock down the economy. I mean, if we lock down the world, but you get people there by that step by step process, by introducing it through TVs and movies. You're breaking people down that way. You're planting the seeds with the imagery by seeing the moving images, so people know how they're going to respond when it actually happens in our world, and that's only accomplished by a step-by-step process.
Yeah, and people may think that this is all this crazy talk, conspiracy, whatever, and that's fine. Most people would. However, look at reality. Look at what the World Economic Forum is trying to do, and look how fast. And I'm sure you were paying attention, but and that's how I really got tuned in with COVID. I right at the beginning, when I don't even think there were lockdowns yet. I'm not sure when it started, but Bill Gates came out and said this will never be over until we vaccinate the global population. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This thing has gotten to nobody yet. You're talking about vaccinating the globe. Mm-hmm. The economy wasn't even locked down, and they're talking about build back better and everything else. And all you got to do is look into a little bit, not much, because I'm not a big reader and I don't really sit there. I just take in information as it comes. But Klaus Schwab and all those freaking crazy maniacs, we have to build a better future. Well, what do you mean? Everything was pretty cool until COVID came, kind of, whatever. And at the point they're talking about this, we didn't know how we were 2 weeks to flatten the curve, but they're talking about rebuilding a better future.
I mean, that feels like 200 years ago now, right? Doesn't it? I mean, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and people fell for that. Yeah, I mean, and to your point, where they had these, like you said, I mean, Bill Gates, before the shit hit the fan in March of 2020, Bill Gates was already talking about vaccinating the world, and we're talking about the Great Reset, Build Back Better, all these Orwellian phrases that this globalist cabal has had in the offing, and they've been planning it for decades. They've had these phrases ready to the social distancing, everything. I mean, you can't distance social. I mean, it's an oxymoron, and obviously, but they've had all these phrases, all these terms, all these catchwords that have been designed to take us into this new world order. They've been waiting, in the offing, ready to be introduced. they've had these phrases well in advance, and they introduce them before we get to the lockdowns, before we even get to the 2 weeks to flatten the curve, before the whole planet is globally shut down on March 12th of 2020. They have them all. They're waiting in the wings to be introduced right as the whole game plan is being unfolded.
Yeah.
And back to your point with the word conspiracy, the reason that people hate the word, or why they shudder at the word conspiracy, is because the CIA in the 1960s, launched an all-out effort to demonize anybody who questioned, the official conclusions of the Warren Commission. All the people that didn't believe in the lone gunman with the magic bullet, and
Right.
those the people that said, wait a second. Again, nothing with the JFK investigation makes sense. Well, the CIA said, okay, let's just demonize the word conspiracy. We'll call it theory, so we can even marginalize it even more, because everybody, conspire just means a group of people get together to work on a goal that they don't want the public to be aware of. Well, everybody conspires. Look at high school. Look at your almost any workplace. People conspire. That's what they do. It's human nature to conspire. But the reason that the phrase conspiracy theory has been so demonized is because the CIA launched an all-out effort to demonize the people that questioned the JFK assassination. That's why to this day, most people shudder to even mention the word conspiracy. But when you break down the word, you look at the definition of the word, and then we think about human behavior. It's the most natural thing in the world. It's as natural as breathing. It is something essential to human behavior. People realize that they can't take over. They can't take over either a business or an economy or a state or a country on their own. So they get together, and then they get together. Then they control the legislature. They control, how laws are passed, how laws are written, which ones are enforced, which ones aren't. Then they're able to manipulate interest rates and all that. We're getting into a lot of different subjects, but the fact of the matter is, it's human nature to conspire. We just look around. Look at your family, right? Look at anyone's family. Look at your circle of friends. Look at when people move in and out of your sphere of influence, or your close your orbit of friendship. And why that happens is because somebody was saying something about somebody else, and then someone believed it, and then someone's no longer your friend. We just see it playing out in human nature in all our interactions. Of course people conspire, but they've managed to demonize that word.
Oh, and then you see, if you notice now, how they're almost connecting the conspiracy people with the Trump supporters, because now we're conspiracy people because we think the election was stolen. Well, no shit. That's that's a conspiracy. Yes.
No, that's the truth. Did you see the movie 2000 Mules? It's
I didn't have to see it because I've been paying attention, but I hear it's solid evidence, but people are acting like, oh, did you see it? And the funny part, and Greg, our mutual friend, we talk about it all the time, is the fact that it's disheartening, because when these movies come out, all they do is, people like us, we're just like, come on. But yet the average person, 2000 Mules, what are you talking about? I never heard of that movie. So nothing is reaching the people who need to see it. And even when it does, they're too far gone to believe it anyway. Yeah. So they're connecting, back to the gun thing. So they're connecting, conspiracy with Trump supporters. And I'm not even a Trump supporter. I'm just an American, man. You know what I mean? I just voted for Trump because I felt he was good for America, and he proved that he was for a term, whatever. And so now we're right-wing extremists. We're actually, if you, I'm sure you do know this, we're considered terrorists, domestic terrorists.
We are. Yeah, we're
on the list to say that people who go against the vaccine mandate, who believe the election was fraudulent, all these things that are true, and you can talk to the average person and they would say we're crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, man.
At this point, Bob, I don't care what those people think. Any person who fell for the lockdown in March of 2020 and is still unwilling to have a conversation about what's happened on this planet over the past 2.5 years, I don't give a flying fuck what their opinion is anymore. Frankly, I don't. And that may even be that, and I may even see that as a flaw in my character, because maybe I should still have more compassion for them. But the past 2.5 years has taken it out of me, because not only for the past 2.5 years, but I've been trying to have these honest conversations with people my entire life, and it's gotten me practically nowhere. So now we're at a point here where if someone still is not receptive to hearing an alternative point of view or taking, I mean, an alternative viewpoint, fuck them. I'm sorry.
Well, because here's what's happening now. When we're all over the place as usual with this conversation, but it's all these shootings are, and it's also part of the whole thing, right? All these shootings are happening, and they're going to try. It's not going to work, but they are trying like hell to ban assault rifles and our Second Amendment, and people don't see that either. And at the end of the day, that's the only thing. And not even say the assault rifle, right? Not even a pistol. My fear is they're going to say we're going to ban assault rifles, but you all can have protection with your pistol. I'm not protecting myself from the average thug. I think I can stay out of trouble fine by myself. I've never needed a weapon my whole life. However, when the government is starting to do what they're doing, that is our last line and our only left of defense. That's it. And I got tomorrow, if we talk again, I might even have it printed out here. I read something yesterday. It's in regards to that's not here, but talking about like if we give up our Second Amendment, there's no more chances. We have one chance left.
Oh yeah, it's over.
If that gets given up, it's over. Yeah. And because like you talked about compulsory, vaccinations and all that, and we're like, ain't nobody gonna do that to me. Well, you know what? If you don't have a way to protect yourself against, and the Constitution, I mean, we're supposed to have a well-armed militia, or the Declaration. I'm not sure which it is, but because like I said, I'm not a historian, but our founding fathers had it set up to protect ourselves against the government.
It's primarily there to protect people against a tyrannical government. And again, you will never hear that mentioned on any mainstream news.
Well, they all act like it's like, so they get up there, it's like,
because they've actually demonized. See, Bob, they've demonized those of us who still know that it's there, that the Second Amendment is designed to protect people from tyranny. A tyrannical government. That's why it's there. And the reason they don't mention it is because they want to demonize people like you and I who know that, who still know that.
How many times do you hear a politician, not all, but most, say, what is the need for an American citizen to have? And they'll be like, this assault rifle.
Yeah.
What's the need for that? Well, the need for it is you.
Yes.
But they act like we don't, like that's not a need, but that's where we have to.
I mean, they've locked down the world. I mean, Bob, they've locked down the world. They destroyed hundreds of millions of people's businesses. How many tens of millions of businesses in the United States have been destroyed or permanently put out of business? They've destroyed people's livelihoods. They've terrorized people. They have a whole generation of children who are going to walk around like this, quivering like a dog trying to take a shit in the dead of winter from fear the rest of their lives. And these are the same people that were here. Take my weapons. You're gonna protect us for all of perpetuity. I mean, it's crazy. And what's even crazy is that even having this conversation, they've demonized us for even being. They don't even want us to be able to have this conversation anymore.
Oh, if you had a popular channel with 1 million followers, you would be banned right now.
What's that? If what?
If you had if this was fast forward and you had a huge following, you would be yanked off of YouTube.
I probably would be. But hey, I just noticed that we're under less than a minute right now.
Okay.
So how about let's pick this up either tomorrow or whatever the next morning you're available.
Yeah, we'll talk later, but it'll probably be fine for tomorrow. We'll do it, and we can talk more about I think there might have been 4 shootings this weekend. I'm not positive.
So, Bobby, just so we don't get cut off abruptly here, we'll wrap it up here, and I will see you in all likelihood tomorrow. We will continue a conversation.
Yeah.
So
Sounds
hey,
good,
great
Luke.
morning. I look forward to talking to you again, Bob. We'll see you.
See you, Luke. Have a good one. Bye.